right, I would like to call this meeting to order. Please hold your comments until I open the agenda items for public comment. When addressing the board, state your full name, both in person and on Zoom. It is suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom. Minutes, I will accept a motion for the minutes.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor? Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Request appointment of Ted Cake as paid on call firefighter for the Mount Desert Fire Department effective October 22, 2024, at a starting pay of $18 an hour.
Move appointment.
Second. All in favor?
I just have a question. Why is it only $18? Is he doing some training like for firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 while he's with you?
Possibly, we have tiers of pay levels. 18 is typically what we used to refer to as volunteer.
Okay,
They only pay when they come in, and they only come in when they're available.
okay,
The next tier would be your per diem
Okay.
firefighters, they're not full time, but they come in to work full shift. They're typically at that 25.
and they are usually firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 certified, right?
Firefighter oriented.
Oriented, okay.
Certified.
I just
Yeah.
felt like 18 was.
All right, all in favor? Request appointment of William Rao as per diem firefighter to Mount Desert Fire Department effective October 22nd, 2024, to starting pay of $25.97 an hour.
Move appointment.
Second. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, please, that memo I submitted was an error. Apparently, Mr. Renault was appointed at the August 19th meeting.
I thought he had been.
I was unaware, but he was appointed at the wrong, pay rate. So if I would ask the board consider to, make an amendment to that motion to adjust his pay rate to $25.97 instead of the motion that said $27.97.
Okay,
So
the August 19th meeting, it was $27.97.
he was appointed at $27.97, the correct rate should be $25.97.
I would move that the record be amended to reflect that the August 19th meeting paying per diem firefighter William Renault $27.97 per hour be amended to $25.97 per hour and be indulged as of this meeting.
Second,
all in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appointments of Teresa Burr and Kathleen Miller as election clerks for the November 5, 2024 election.
Move appointments.
Second. All in favor?
thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda, Acadia Disposal District Audit, June 30, 2024, and letter from Secretary of State Shanna Bellows to municipal clerks, October 2nd, 2024.
Move acceptance of the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
All in favor? Select board reports, any reports?
Just that the traffic has slowed considerably now that the sidewalk is underway. I don't know how long that's gonna happen, but my wife is not happy about driving back from Fremont today.
And if I might just make a note, I think the elected officials meeting that we had on last Thursday for the League of Towns was very successful. There was some good discussion. I wish there had been a little bit more discussion with regard to solutions. There was plenty of discussion with regard to identifying the nature of problems. And I think it gave us room to start beginning to create solutions to some of those issues for both transportation and for housing.
I can kind of follow up a little bit with that. It's the intention of the league during its winter meetings is to start to work around some of those ideas for potential solutions. And then to come back in the spring, in probably either late March or early April, well before the summer season gets going, to bring the group back together and see if we can implement some of those. So it was kind of designed to be two phases. This first phase to get out ideas, and the second phase then to come back with some concrete suggestions of what we can actually do to start implementing them, because I think there was a definite feeling at that group that obviously it's a national problem, maybe an international problem, I'm not sure, but we know that the lowest level that you can start to have any effectiveness of addressing it is at the regional level. none of the municipalities are anywhere near large.
Right.
To be able to solve or to even begin to address those on their own. So I think, we came away with that, with an awareness that, obviously the regional solutions are the lowest level that you can really start at. And so hopefully we'll get this all put together and we'll be back in the spring and we'll take the next.
I was impressed. I thought it was a good meeting.
Well, good, thank you.
I did too.
Yeah.
And I thought Carrie Jones did an awesome story.
Oh, yeah.
For like people that weren't there, like it was a really nice, well-written. If people haven't seen it, it's a great story.
And I think very well, the stories like that will get the word out.
Yes.
I'm hoping it will develop some more enthusiasm and I'm thinking now that the elected officials
On the Harbor story.
will be having
It was a great article.
having the managers really heavily engaged in the steps that we need to take this fall. So, yeah, I agree, and I agree the story was tremendous.
But it was
Yeah.
Bar Harbor Story, Heidi, for the minutes, that did a great story on that.
Very good. So thank you, Rick, for those comments, and then kind of dovetailed right in, because I was gonna mention that very thing about what the follow-ups would be, so you took care of it for me. Thank you.
All right, unfinished business, discussion of third-party funding requests and review of the policy dated October 2022.
And speaking of that, before we go move on, I'm setting up an email chain for everyone who attended and extending that to all elected officials, even the ones that weren't there. So you'll be starting to get information as we move forward. We'll be sticking stuff and sending out blasts on that. So I think that will be a good thing to help keep people appraised. I'm just curious, I set up, as I was setting up the group, occasionally I would get emails back saying that they'd been notified that they were a member of that group. I don't know if any of you would.
Yeah,
got that. You did get it, okay. So good, all right, well, that answers that question.
To, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
To kick off the discussion of the third-party funding request and review of the policy. I reread the policy today with a mind towards where we've been through COVID and everything else. And since it was adopted back in October of 2022, it seems to me that it is still quite viable and a good measuring stick for us to continue to use without amendment. But as I said, this is open for discussion, but in reviewing it, I thought, yep, this thing it's right on. So I just throw that out for discussion.
No, I pretty much agree with that.
We begin discussing the third-party appointments in January.
Everyone is when we had, well, yeah, we send them out traditionally in January.
The applications.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't send it out.
We don't send them out anymore, no.
We make them available, right?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
just to address that, yes, I will have it posted on the website by January 1st. If I can get it up there before then, like mid-December, it will be. But one of the things that I need to discuss with you before it gets up there is how you want to review them this year, because in the past, that second meeting in February, which is when we usually do them, is a school break. So if you wanted to move the meeting like to the following week, or if you wanted to break it into two, although I think with having the MOUs, the list is getting shorter, so you could probably still do it in one night instead of two. But those are things we need to talk about, and I have to have those dates in order to put the application out.
I would certainly be in favor of not having an important board meeting any week that there's no school. Not that I know that I'll be gone or anything, but three of us work for public schools and.
All right,
And do we have a policy for the MOUs, like the people that qualify? Is there certain criteria? Is it like if you provide a service to the town that without you?
No, it's, if my memory serves me, if we feel that an agency isn't rightfully placed in the third party request pile, and we feel that they are appropriate for an MOU, our town manager generally approaches that organization to discuss what that MOU will contain, because it's not a boilerplate standard MOU that fits all agencies.
Okay,
It would be tailor-made between the town manager and the agency, who then brings it back to us to say, here's the MOU, does this work? Is that about right, Darren?
That's about right, yeah, I don't have any quibbling with that.
okay,
So Randy, what do you have to say?
I think for the Mount Desert Island Historical Society, that, yeah, we would see ourselves as being firmly embedded within the town of Mount Desert with 2 historic campuses, and that we provide free services to the public and to the community year round, in addition to caring for the archive and the most iconic photograph placed on MDI. So I think it would be, I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to become part of how the town views its partnerships and its relationships, rather than thinking of us as an outside party where we have to apply every year.
Mhm. So I guess one of the questions that I've heard, is, you call yourself the Mount Desert Island Historical Society. Are you in fact a historical society for the entire island?
We are, but our only campuses are within the town of Mount Desert, but we provide services obviously for the entire island, and we collect and preserve archival resources for the entire island. But, we don't have any campuses outside of the township of Mount Desert, nor do we anticipate that. So anything, just sorry to clarify, anything that we have come to for the town in the past, and anything we would anticipate for in the future is related strictly to the campuses and the upkeep of the facilities, not related to programming or staffing or business operations. It's really just the access to the general public to the historic sites.
Gotcha.
Okay,
so any that has been a third-party request in the past, that is an entity similar to the Historical Society or the Chamber, can come to you as the town manager and present becoming an MOU, right? Is that,
Well, they actually present to you, they come to me to say that they'd like to, and then I would take care of making sure that they are scheduled
okay,
to meet before you, but since that's a board policy, that's something you folks.
Correct.
really
would vote on, but if they
Vote on.
have a strong feeling, they would start
Yeah,
with you to
yeah,
come to the board,
yeah.
okay?
So I would. make-
Because the policy, I think, is really clear and well, but then the MOU gets a little,
It isn't real bureaucratic.
And how many do we have now, the MOUs?
Oh,
3 or 4.
we've got Neighborhood House, we've got Island Explorer.
That's what I was wondering, the neighbor of the island.
In all the libraries, we get at least 5.
So,
we don't have the, Chamber of Commerce yet, but we-
No, you haven't decided.
No, not yet.
I think that would make 6.
so I mean, the Island Explorer is an example of a
yeah,
situation that serves clearly more than the town, but
they must go
It's
to every town.
yeah, they have.
they do, but I'm just. Anyway,
Yeah.
follow up with.
Okay,
There are no hard. and
Yes.
fast rules.
So maybe I'm going in a way you don't wanna go, but if I were a third party and last year I needed a new roof, I might ask for more money, and this year I don't need as much money as a third party, so I'm gonna ask for less money just to keep the doors open or whatever it is. So third party requests, that amount can sometimes vary.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If I become an MOU. That number changes.
Well, we change, Katrina, like the annual departmental budgets, they're
So
created.
those organizations come to you and say, hey, listen, we need to replace this, now we
Absolutely.
need to up our number.
Just like department heads go to the board and ask for budget changes, either up or down, mostly up.
I would think it would be less about specific expenses and more about our budget. I mean, because an MOU would be involved with paying a certain percent of, or not maybe based on a percent, but they have a pretty fixed budget. And if there's some unusual expenses and their budgets go up, then they might ask to amend the MOU, but it wouldn't be reviewed every year unless somebody said, things have changed.
Look, I didn't know there was a dollar amount in the MOU.
Depends on when they are accepted for the MOU and become a line item in the budget.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, that was the sort of the.
Because they come and defend their budgets, just like any department head does.
I just think that everybody that, if you think about all the services that come before you for third-party request night, so many of those really are services that are provided to the town. You know, like the bathrooms on Main Street. The bathrooms, all those kind of things, those are all services. So,
Right.
yes, there are more things that could become MOUs, right?
Well, the bathrooms on Main Street really are sort of an MOU.
But you grill that organization every year when they
Well,
come
we
after.
fund them every year for whatever they want for those bathrooms.
Say that again, John?
I believe we fund them every year.
You can.
Am I wrong?
No, I can't hear you very well, that's why I'm
Okay.
asking.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Not to follow up on that previous questioner, but the bathrooms on Main Street are not currently an MOU, but they were installed by the town for the town as a town service. So if there's a chance to make them an MOU, how does that work? This is the first I've ever heard of this process where we reach out to Derlin.
You would do, well, they reach out to me again and say that you would like to go before the board of select, or the select board, I was just about to get politically incorrect. Sorry. And say that you would like to make a case for consideration as a memorandum of understanding as opposed to a third-party request. And I would put you on to the next available meeting and we'd go from there.
All right, that's really helpful. I guess my understanding of the MOU, not as a museum person, but as a taxpayer, was that those were meant to fund things that would otherwise be funded by the town under a normal budget, right? It's like public restrooms and the town pool.
That's why they go into a budget and it goes into the administrative budget, really, so.
Yeah. So it would make sense to make those like an MOU.
Right, exactly. And that's why I think the difference is in my mind to make it an MOU versus, say, Life Flight, which provides an important service of the town, but is not a service that would ordinarily be provided by the town.
I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but means I'm not getting my helicopter.
Or the
Sorry,
helo pad, that not be allowed in this town.
Derlin, you don't live off island, so you don't need a helicopter to commute.
It'd be great to go to conferences.
Put us in October, we'll be on
Sorry about
Oh, my good lord.
I believe we're gonna have a number coming to Derlin this year. I think one is coming from the chamber as well.
chamber.
Well, and I
Yes.
mean, yeah, and I guess my thought was also that the
Because we
ones
do
that, the ones that
business center.
truly belong in the budget are ones that are significant expenses that don't need to go through this process.
Right.
But if we're talking about a few thousand, or like a request, that doesn't really need to be a line item in the budget. But anyway, that was how I interpreted it, that some of the ones we're paying us, $20,000 or even $15,000 or $10,000 a year, every year. Why not just dispense with that sort of once and for all until it has to be revisited? But again, if we end up with a million of them, then that'll be a short meeting.
Did you read my wish list?
No. I did not, Rick. Maybe next time.
All right, do we have any more on this?
So we're gonna need to decide. By the second meeting, I think in November, what you're gonna do with those, because then we'll be actually starting preparing the budgets, and if they're going to be. MOUs, we're gonna have to open up new lines in the budget, and I'm gonna have to get those numbers in time for. The administration review, which is traditionally the first review, so you do have a little time to decide, but a couple more meetings, you should nail that down.
Can I
And
ask
after
a
that-
follow-up? Can I ask a
Yeah,
follow-up? Sorry. For the information that you're gonna want, do you have a list of info that you want, Derlin? Or is this a matter of me saying formally, hey, the bathrooms on Main Street may be applicable to an MOU, and the select board says either yes or no? If that's,
We're not terribly sophisticated. To the best of my knowledge, we're still using the traditional third-party request form for you to submit. So you would write that down on there.
okay, so then that means my question is, so I would basically submit you a third-party request and for you to decide if it is an MOU or not, correct?
No, the board would decide, but that's the form that we use to actually get the information down. We haven't got to the sophistication point yet where we've created a whole new MOU application form, but we have an MOU agreement form that we get.
Yeah, and going forward, we would use that as a strength.
Yeah,
So,
The third-party request form seems to gather the information that they would need, so it doesn't seem to be any compelling reason to change that at this point.
But they would just request in their third-party request that they be considered as an MOU.
Yeah, and I would
Yep.
make sure that they were scheduled in time, and then they would come to the administration budget meeting.
so here's my question, which may be the same one that Claire's gonna bring up. Are they supposed to use last year's third-party request form because because
No,
we're supposed to
we'd like to
decide?
have a new one every year.
Well, but that isn't gonna be available until well after you said we have
No,
to
we've
decide.
got those right now.
Okay, that's not what we were just told a minute.
Okay, no, I don't have this one ready yet because I don't have dates and stuff yet. And so my question is gonna be, since the MOU stuff has to come up well before the third-party funding starts going in January. I have last year's form, they can use that
Right.
and just
Cause
say,
it was like we were discussing a couple of weeks ago, we need to add on to the budget developmental sheet, a segment on there that says get the MOUs to, or get the information to the third-party requesters.
Because otherwise, we're looking at the people that fill out third-party requests in the first couple of weeks of January. If they wanna become an MOU, it's gonna be for the next
For the
year.
next year.
So if there's an organization that would like to be considered an MOU for the budget that'll be voted on in May, they need to get that information in far before you were planning on having it posted for next year. So they need to use
Yeah, of
last year's
course,
form.
because you review the budget, the administration budget, the
Yes.
first meeting in December.
Yep.
so,
Willie, if you contact Derlin's gonna provide you with a piece of paper,
You're gonna fill it
regardless
out.
of the date that's on it, for you to provide the essential information that the board will need to render a decision on whether and to what extent the public bathrooms will become an MOU item in the budget.
And I'm assuming the same has already been communicated in some way, shape or form to the Chamber of Commerce.
And to the Historical Society.
And will
Ray,
be-
you just heard me say that, so ask Derlin for a
So,
piece
I
of
mean,
paper.
Beyond
Cross
that,
out the date if you want to,
I
but
was just gonna clarify, like, I'm sorry, Claire, can we write on there, you know, that.
For MOU
this is for
consideration.
MOU, so that it is really clear and that this timeline is in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
yeah, not, because I'm going in a presidential election, so nothing's happening until that's done. So my question is, based on what you said, as far as their application coming after the first of the year to be considered for the next year,
Mhm.
MOU. What about the applications that were submitted last year? Can they use that as the springboard for requesting the MOU this year? Because we've already got that.
I would have no issue with that, but I guess the point is that we should make it clear so we don't have to do this like that people filling out a new request for third-party funding understands that if they'd like to be considered for the next cycle to not have to go through that, they should, we didn't know that last year, but at this
Well-
point, I don't have any problem with using last year.
I guess now I'm kind of confused because you're putting out these third-party funding requests and everyone's gonna go like, oh, cool, I can be an MOU. And so you're gonna have like 25 or 30 third-party funding requests thinking they're gonna be MOU.
I know, yeah.
So I'm like, I
So that's
think
where we
you
need to
need to
start
kind of
cutting it off.
more clearly define who's eligible for an MOU before we put something like that out there.
We're not saying anybody's eligible. They need to make the case to us that they are, in fact, eligible. By requesting consideration for inclusion in the budget, aside from the third-party requests. So if, like you said, they use last year's application, that's the information we need to make a decision. Well, maybe this would be more appropriate to be seated in the budget rather than having them come every year and ask for money.
So are we going to actually now solicit them to
No.
apply for MOU?
No.
Okay,
That's certainly not the intent. Agencies that have seen how this process works have reviewed their own personal circumstance, such as the Historical Society, and have said, maybe we would be better served if we were entering into an MOU with the town and become a line item in their budget. What steps do I need to take in order to have that reviewed by the Board of Selectmen or Select Board,
Thank you.
to make that happen?
so do we need to amend the application, or are we just
No.
waiting for them to come to us and say, hey, I'd like to be considered?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can pull last year's
So-
application, and you can talk to Derlin.
So at this point, we have three people who have, three organizations that have suggested they'd like to be considered to be pulled out of that.
For this next,
For
for the
this
current
cycle.
budget year.
Right.
Is that
We'll be
correct?
working on.
That would be correct. If
All right.
Rainey goes through, that'll be Willie, Rainey,
So
and Georgianne Sneed.
if we hurry, then we won't have 14 other
So I
people.
have the chamber, the historical society, and who else was it?
Great
The Great Harbor Museum.
Oh,
Great
the
Harbor
museum, right,
Museum.
right.
always the answer, no.
No, where have you
If
been?
anybody else gets in touch, then I'll make sure that.
Okay,
we get
thank
stuff
you.
to-
So do we need a motion to,
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
so those three organizations are gonna be on the agenda in the next couple of weeks to formally?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I apologize because I'm not a resident of Mount Desert, but, how, like, I can look, but do we get any notifications if we are on the agenda? I haven't in the past, so, okay.
Well, the easiest way, if I have your email or whatever, I do tend to send out emails to people who I know are on the agenda, but if you sign up for the listserv where the agendas are sent out automatically,
Oh, I didn't know there was.
you would,
Okay.
yeah, yes,
I'm on the League of Town stuff, but I didn't know there was a separate.
yes.
Yep.
So I can help you with that.
Thank you, I will do that.
Okay.
You done with this?
No more
Good.
discussion, I would move that item be closed.
Okay. Yes, on to, discussion regarding Marina and Town Garage dumpster security.
Yeah, so a little while back, you kind of sent me with some instructions to look at both the marina dumpster and also the dumpsters that are at the town garage. Investigate potential options for securing those and so that they're used the way that they're supposed to be used appropriately. And so spent a little bit of time just thinking about it first and talking to some of our personnel and then the harbor committee with a proposal for the marina dumpster. Basically proposing that we fence in the existing dumpster area. There's sort of a little jut out of pavement for the curb. So putting fencing up around the exterior of it that would have a gate that locks and key code access to get into it. And John Lemoyne and I had spoken even prior to that. He already manages gate access or key code access to the Yachtsman's building, so it would be something that he could take on at his office where only those that have slips or moorings doing business in the marina would have access to that gate code. So I presented that as a basic approach. We had a little bit of discussion about the type of fencing that you would have and whether or not you'd have a split, trash over and how many seagulls would get in. And so one of the concerns that was brought up was putting a lid on the top of it. Privacy fencing on it as well. So, you know, the diagonal strips that go into a chain link fence in order so that you don't really see it. And then a lid to keep the seagulls out and to keep from people throwing bags up on top, which I think is a good idea. So that was one of the modifications that they had. I'm working through where there maybe are two options to do that. One would be a rolling dumpster. So when you open the doors, they would roll the dumpster out, because if you wanted to build the fencing high enough, it would be greater than 12 feet in order to be something that the truck could actually lift the dumpster, and that's quite high. It would be very noticeable. It would be nicer to keep it a little bit lower, and not have quite such a large structure down there. So we're thinking a little bit smaller structure, but then maybe the dumpster goes on rollers. It gets pulled out, dumped, put back in place, empty, and the doors closed again. There'd be a side door with that key code where an individual can walk in and out through a smaller door. So that's the basic proposal. The other consideration that the Harbor Committee asked about was a phased in approach, so that people have an understanding that this is something that's coming. That we don't just one day build a fence and then no one has access anymore. So that we get the word out and so people understand, those that are accustomed to having this dumpster in that place.
Yeah.
Know ahead of time that this is coming, which I think is a good consideration as well. I wouldn't expect we'd be doing this immediately anyways, and so I think there's plenty of opportunity for some spread the word about doing that. I think there's no issues with doing that. The third consideration that was brought up by the Harbor Committee had to do with further access to additional dumpsters in town. So the suggestion was that if this is going to be constrained to be marina use only, which is who's paying for it, because there is a transfer from the marina to pay for this dumpster service, that there ought to be other locations in town of a dumpster of some sort, also probably enclosed with fencing and key code access of some sort. To me, that seems a little more difficult to manage. Now we're talking about who's got access to it, and is it just residents or not? And really, I kind of went to the level of service that we already provide. Essentially every home, except for those few that are on private roads, you just put it out on the front and it's picked up, it goes away. In the summer, it goes away twice a week. Those that are on private roads, even many of those seasonally, we're taking trash trucks up the private roads. We just don't do it in the winter because we don't get to control how it's plowed and whether or not it's plowed in time for us to be there. So that's why private roads go off the list in the winter and you have to bring it out to the nearest public road. So I think the level of service is already quite high. For those also that are generating trash that would need access to a dumpster in town here, or if we expanded it to other villages, you could just buy a dumpster for a few $100s or rent a dumpster for not much a month and we'll pick it up at your location. And so I think there's ample ability for people to establish their own dumpster locations if that's the level of trash that they're generating. And so I think that, the considerations in terms of how the structure was built, all of that I think is fine. We'll work out a solution for that. As far as giving public notice and letting people know that this is something that's coming, I think that's perfectly fine. But I'm not particularly fond of the idea of adding more dumpster locations.
Not even a little bit, no.
And so that's what I would like to go forward with as far as the marina dumpster is concerned. And I just wanted to bring it back here so that you had a sense of kind of where we've gotten so far in the discussion and what the proposal has turned into at this point.
So I mean, that's a good start. Any discussion about what happens when people just leave their garbage right out the sidewalk?
Oh, yes, yes, I'm sorry.
Cameras.
Skipped over that. John already has several cameras around the marina. He has room to add an additional camera, so he doesn't have one that points at that dumpster location now. We'll add one, it'll point to that dumpster, and then we'll do the requisite enforcement to.
With a lot of signage, I assume.
And signage.
I
We
do,
have to do enforcement at the town garage now.
do
Yeah.
people, I mean, I know historically, people would go down and pick through the dumpster or take stuff out of the dumpster, returnables and stuff like that. And I know I've seen some people put like oil beside the dumpster from boats. Are there organizations that pick that up for furnaces that use that type of oil? Or I'm just curious if,
We have a furnace at the town garage that uses waste oil.
okay,
And so we do have drop off, if there's someone at the town garage, generally speaking, if you bring your waste oil there, you could drop it off. We can't take huge quantities.
right,
But when you see the oil that sits on the side by the dumpster.
Yeah,
Generally, the guys will just pick that up and that goes into the system for burning at the town
Okay.
garage. So we do have waste oil furnace.
Perfect.
there at the garage.
I've seen a lot of that, so I just am curious, like, what happens to that if,
That was the marina one.
Yeah,
And I think so that sounds like
I like
that
that.
can move forward as is, and I'll make sure that it's phased appropriately so that people understand that this is coming. At the town garage, in many ways, it's fairly straightforward, I think, for what we can do there for limited access to that campus. And that's essentially 3 sets of swing closed, pipe gates, so that vehicles can't drive in. There's more than just the trash for reasons for why you would want to do that. It's gonna help us secure that campus a little bit more. That's something that when we have the federal agency here, CISA, looking at that campus, we have all of our wastewater treatment plants are enclosed, they're locked gates. There shouldn't really be any difference as far as the town garage goes as well. And so having some gates that can close to limit vehicle access into there. What that leads to is that essentially those gates will only be swung open more or less from 7 o'clock in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon, with the exception that I think the bus drivers are there a little bit earlier, so they can swing gates open and leave them open when they're there. These are gates that we can build. It shouldn't be an issue to get them installed. We can take care of that. So that's Monday through Friday. Reasonably good access hours, but it does close at 3:30. And then weekends are the more difficult part, because the trash, we have refuse employees that come in every day, Saturday and Sunday. It's a brief period of time. It's generally about 3 hours. It isn't necessarily the same time all the time. And the 2 concerns I have there is that it's a relatively short period of time, just 3 hours, and it's not fixed. As to when it starts and stops. So that's kind of what I was hoping to have a little bit of discussion about. I think the Monday through Friday will probably be fine. It's probably gonna, it'll be a little difficult at first.
I mean, again, you start with
Phased,
signage but I feel like recycling, a lot of that is Saturday. People that take their
Recycling.
stuff, yeah. Cause of the gates at the doors,
That should go away by the end of next summer. Because that plant should be open,
oh,
and we should be sending all of our trash there. There won't be a need to have recycling containers there by the end of summer is the schedule.
Okay, so I have a question. Is there, you mentioned that the hours were short and they weren't fixed. Is there a way to fix them?
We can, yes, we can.
And it's like, you're thinking like 3 hours approximately each of those 2 days of the weekend?
They're 3 hours each day. yes.
So, I personally think that if that could be fixed to a certain 3-hour period. And we could advertise it, that those are the 3 hours that it's open on Saturday and Sunday, all of that sounds perfectly fine to me.
The way the contract is right now, we have set hours for during the days of the week, but it's sort of up to the individuals on the
Okay.
weekends to when they come in and leave. So that would require going back and getting approval to set those hours at specific times.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean, none of this means that you have people standing by the dumpster. This just means the gates are open.
The gates don't allow vehicles
Right.
to be closed and locked, and you wouldn't be able to come in with your vehicle, but it stops someone from walking in
Right.
with a bag of trash or. bag of
Well, no,
recycling.
but that's, right, but
And
yeah,
it's not
okay.
that
So
far.
again, maybe that's less of a difficult sticking point to try to get the gates open from 8 to 11. I don't know, that's just, otherwise, everything else sounded terrific. The lab people would have to remember to drop off their trash before work if they want to continue to drop their trash off for free when they're not residents.
and you could bring a mattress in theoretically and
Yeah,
dump it up there.
Right.
I mean, my
Half hours.
My
Right.
wife was there doing the drop and recycling last week, and it was a guy at like 6 o'clock at night throwing tires in the dumpster.
Development pile outside the gate.
And, that's,
Yeah, I would also like to improve that camera system.
That would be
we have in
great.
town Garage, so that we can do a little better at picking up license plates. There were a number of propane tanks left,
yeah.
and we couldn't get the plate.
Don't you have a lot of people stealing salt and sand too, that late hours?
Well, people can come and get
During
It's all
eight, from eight to
span
3:30.
During hours, yeah, there's not that's fine. I don't know that there's a lot of stealing. I'm not
Okay.
aware of a lot of stealing.
Like dogs coming in.
No, I mean, people from other towns.
I have been asked about having, someone on site a little bit more often. Generally, if we're fully staffed with seasonal people, we have had a seasonal person down there some of the time, mostly about the recycling. Just to get people to,
Right.
understand how to do the recycling. We could potentially have a seasonal person in the summer helping out that site. There's a little more work in the summer, so maybe there'd be longer hours on weekends beyond the prescribed 3 hours each day.
I think it's a great start. I mean, we
Yeah,
gotta
it's a great
start
start. I
somewhere
do too.
and
Yep.
signage and, clear hours.
I mean, I do think it's important, however, like you said, that we figure out how to mitigate the weekend times. So that they are consistent for the people that wanna come, but don't violate the employees' contract agreement. So if we can figure out something in there in the next 6 months, that would be fantastic.
Will there still be a dumpster or container, whatever you wanna call it, in Seal Harbor at that municipal parking area?
There isn't one there now.
There
There hasn't
hasn't
been. I don't know when there was last one there. It's been a while.
is there one at Bartlett's Landing?
Yes. And there's one at the pier itself.
So it'll be curious to see, I mean, if you've got something that you wanna get rid of, come hell or high water, you're gonna get rid of it, right? So,
Well, people know, just go to. the
and I know we
school.
have a family dumpster, and it's
I
challenging
didn't know that.
to keep people out of it.
Even with the system that we have now, where there's one at the marina that gets overused.
Oh,
and
that
it's
maybe
already-
it's used all the time,
If we, summers will dump that 3 times a day
yes, and still not be able to keep.
and not keep.
And yeah, and probably it would be hard to know exactly what percentage of that is actually trash from people who had the right to throw it in there. Probably very small.
So what Katrina is saying, watch out for Bartlett's Island.
In Seal Harbor.
I would watch, yeah, I would just watch the increase in those two
Yes.
spots, because if you can't dump your weekend cleaning out the kids' playroom down here, you're gonna find out from your friends where you can dump it.
Which would be at Southwest Harbor.
There are places
Yeah.
people know where to go and it's not
Frontage.
good.
Everybody gets to.
Transfer station.
Southwest Harbor.
Super.
That's right. Well, that goes back to the level of service that we already have available. I mean, and the ever increasing costs of all these things and I mean, I know that nobody ever wants to talk about changing the basic format of waste, how we pay for this, but I mean, I still think that with some of our housing being taken into, I think that transient accommodations produce a lot more trash per day per person than the residents, and I also think residents even could use more incentive to reduce the amount of trash that they produce. And so I still think long-term, we need to be thinking about how to do that, and whether it's a paper bag or whatever it is. Some of those things have gotta be coming down the road, because we're gonna be overrun, as is everybody else.
Well, this is a good start.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
I'll continue. Thank you.
new business, request authorization to replace a 40 foot by 6 foot section of our dinghy dock using Seawood Services Inc. for $11,191.60. To be
Thank
paid
you,
out of
Brian.
the Northeast Harbor Float CIP number 6410100-24681 with a balance of $362,530.91.
I would move approval
Second.
or authorization.
All in favor?
there you go, John. Oh, just talking to John.
Thank you for being available, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Consider the acceptance of a donated 2009 Chevrolet Girard and 15 passenger minibus as a conditioned gift from the neighborhood house on behalf of the Mount Desert Fire Department.
I move approval, acceptance. What a great idea, Mike, like, for some really good training.
You will see us riding around in it.
No,
Well, because you're not, the insurance, you're not,
when I first saw this, I was like, what did they need that? And then I kept reading, I was like, oh, they're gonna,
I agree, yeah, and I agree with Grace's, now she had a good point too, where we're seeing more and more of these on the roads now that we have cruise ships and things like that, so it's a good opportunity to train on things like this.
Good.
And it's easy to get rid
How many-
of theoretically afterwards?
Excuse me?
Is it easy to get rid of afterwards?
Yeah, typically we have, good reputations for team recovery, totally.
Okay, perfect. So I would move acceptance.
Second,
All in favor?
Thank you.
Any public comment? Public comment, anybody?
yeah, I'll let.
All right. Any other business? Treasurer's warrants. Approval and signature, town invoice AP 2527 in the amount of $544,259.76.
Move approval and signature.
Second.
All in favor? Approval and signature, state fees and payroll benefits. AP 2525, AP 2526, and town payroll PR 2508 in the amount of $230,008.78.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
One abstention.
Acknowledgements, school invoices, school payroll, PR4. Voided disbursements and reissues, V 2505 and AP 2524. For a net amount of $98,908.43.
Move acknowledgement.
Second.
All in favor? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Just to note. That the next meeting's up in the fire.
Thank you.
I always like that. We have plenty of elbow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm